They ignored the helicopter pilot, until the warship turned toward him. They ignored him. A lone helicopter pilot. No ID. No clearance. But as his boots touched the deck, the sentinel awoke. Turrets rotated, drones lifted, weapon systems obeyed. Not the Navy, not the crew, only him. The ship had chosen him long before anyone else. And now, nothing could stop him. The early morning sky was painted in shades of grey and silver, the sea calm yet restless beneath the bow of the USS Sentinel. Its steel hull cut through the water with quiet authority, engines humming a deep, steady rhythm. The crew moved in a precise, disciplined cadence, repeating the routines of countless patrols. Routine, predictable, almost comforting in its monotony. Above, the sound of rotors slicing through the fog announced an unexpected presence. A lone helicopter descended from the horizon, its silhouette barely visible against the low-hanging clouds. From the cockpit emerged a single figure, tall, lean, and taut with focus, guiding the craft with an ease that betrayed decades of experience. No squad insignia, no identification patch, just a man, flying as though the ocean itself had cleared the way for him. Petty Officer Nathan Cole, stationed on the aft deck, squinted toward the approaching helicopter. Who's piloting that?" he muttered to the sailor next to him. "Probably some contractor," the other replied, dismissive. "They don't count. Let them pass." But Nathan's instincts bristled. The man's flight pattern was too precise, too intentional, like he had mapped the Sentinel's every movement before even approaching. Commander Adrian Frost stormed onto the bridge, moments later, voice sharp, cutting through the fog. "Identify that helicopter! Who authorized an unregistered aircraft in our airspace?" The helicopter descended closer, landing with a mechanical grace on the flight deck. Its pilot stepped out, hands adjusting the harness of his flight jacket, boots striking the deck lightly. He didn't respond to Frost, didn't even glance at him. Instead, his eyes swept the Sentinel's deck with quiet scrutiny, noting every sensor, every turret, every radar dish. Captain Miranda Hayes emerged, boots thudding against the deck. "Step away from the landing area," she commanded. "You are not cleared to board." The pilot's gaze remained fixed on the forward guns of the Sentinel, his voice calm but filled with certainty. "I don't need clearance. They've been waiting for me." "Excuse me?" Hayes frowned. "Do you understand the regulations you're violating?" A subtle vibration hummed beneath the deck. Sensors flickered along the hull. The Sentinel, usually obedient to bridge commands, shivered almost imperceptibly. Console screens blinked with activity that hadn't been initiated by anyone on board. "Captain," murmured the communications officer, "the ship, it's reacting. Systems are self-activating." Frost's jaw tightened. "Self-activating? That's impossible." The pilot stepped closer to the edge of the deck, dark hair whipping in the wind, his eyes scanning the warship as if it were alive. "It's not about possibility," he said softly. "It's about recognition." From the shadows of the morning mist, the Sentinel's automated systems came alive. Gun turrets rotated, sensors scanned, and unmanned defense drones lifted from their docking stations. Each movement was deliberate, synchronized, almost sentient. "Identify yourself!" Captain Hayes barked. The pilot didn't answer. He merely lifted a hand, almost imperceptibly. Immediately, the warship responded as if it understood him, not as an intruder, but as a commander it had been waiting for. Drones aligned, radar systems synced, and weapon platforms powered up, encircling him protectively. Petty Officer Cole swallowed hard. They're obeying him?" Frost shook his head in disbelief. "No human has this level of access." "It's not access," the pilot said, voice steady, unwavering. "They remember me." Suddenly, shapes appeared on the horizon, unmarked vessels, approaching with military precision, scanning for weak points. The crew scrambled to respond, Commands were issued. Consoles were overridden. Every attempt to engage manually failed. "Captain!" an officer shouted, panic rising. "They're approaching! Defensive systems are unresponsive!" Hayes's hands gripped the railing. Locked by what? "By who?" the pilot corrected, stepping fully onto the flight deck. The moment his boots struck the steel, the Sentinel's engines roared. Not under human command, but under his. The ship turned toward the advancing vessels, weapon systems aligning flawlessly. Every automated turret, drone, and sensor responded as if anticipating his commands. Cole whispered, "It's moving on its own." The pilot didn't flinch. The Sentinel was built with protocols the Navy never understood, protocols that respond to one operator. "Are you saying you're bonded to this ship?" Hayes demanded. The pilot nodded, dark eyes scanning the horizon. "Long before the Navy approved me, the Sentinel did." The unmarked vessels accelerated, advancing like predators, but every maneuver they attempted was countered before action could be taken. With a subtle gesture from the pilot, the Sentinel's automated fleet intercepted threats, neutralizing them with surgical precision. "Impossible," Frost muttered. "No one can coordinate like this." "They aren't following me," the pilot said softly. "They're following what the ship knows, what it trusts. I am its signature, its operator, its commander." The horizon rippled as enemy vessels hesitated, scanning, confused by the Sentinel's unexpected coordination. Cole's voice trembled. They obeyed him before we even issued orders." The pilot exhaled, eyes never leaving the advancing fleet. "I didn't request this. I only answered the call." Captain Hayes looked around at her crew, awed, shaken. Who is this man?" He turned to the deck, expression calm, resolute. "I am nothing without the Sentinel, but the Sentinel has always chosen me." The first shots from enemy drones were fired, only to be intercepted mid-air by the Sentinel's defensive drones. The automated systems moved as one, shielding the ship with precision beyond human capability. Every crew member understood the terrifying truth. This warship answered to him alone, and the battle had only just begun. The unmarked fleet advanced, engines cutting through the fog like a swarm of predators. On the flight deck, the pilot, Ethan Kane, stood calm, his eyes scanning the approaching threat. He didn't flinch, didn't speak. The Sentinel, as if alive, responded to his presence alone. Its turrets rotated smoothly, drones lifted in perfect formation, and every automated system aligned as if anticipating each enemy maneuver. Commander Frost slammed his hand against the console. "Captain, they're closing in. Shields won't hold against that many." Captain Hayes clenched her jaw. "Stand down. Trust him. Trust the ship." Cole's voice shook. "Stand down? Are you insane? The fleet will destroy us before we can react." But Ethan's eyes never left the horizon. "Watch," he murmured. With a subtle gesture of his hand, the Sentinel surged forward, not at random, but with calculated precision. Automated drones darted toward the enemy, intercepting missiles mid-air. Turrets fired, not blindly, but in synchronized patterns, neutralizing every threat without a single human command. The crew stared in disbelief. Alarms blared, consoles flickered, but every system obeyed him, only him. An enemy ship broke formation, attempting a flanking maneuver. Ethan stepped forward, boots striking the deck. The Sentinel's engines responded instantly, turning the massive hull with the fluidity of a predator. The flanking vessel's weapons jammed mid-targeting. Its drones collapsed into the sea. "Impossible," Frost whispered. "It's like the Sentinel knows exactly what's coming before it happens." "Not knows," Ethan corrected. It remembers. It recognizes me. And it trusts me. From the horizon, more unmarked ships emerged, larger, faster, and more deadly. The crew tensed. Ethan lifted his hand again, eyes closed. The sentinel hummed, responding to a command no one could hear. Engines flared, turrets moved, sensors synced. A protective shield of drones formed a perfect barrier around the vessel. "Look at this," Cole gasped. "The sentinel is controlling the battle." "Yes," Ethan said softly, "and it will continue to do so, as long as I remain its operator." Lightning split the sky above, illuminating the chaos. The unmarked fleet attempted another coordinated strike, but every missile, drone, and gunfire was neutralized before reaching the sentinel. The warship moved like a single organism, defending itself and those aboard with terrifying efficiency. Captain Hayes finally spoke, voice low. "Ethan, how is this possible? How can one man command a battleship like this?" Ethan opened his eyes, calm, unwavering. "Because it chose me long before the Navy ever did. The Sentinel was built to respond to a single signature, mine. Every system, every protocol, dormant until this moment. I didn't create it. I merely answered its call." A massive enemy cruiser attempted to fire its main cannons. The Sentinel's automated defense drones intercepted every shell midair. Turrets pivoted, locking on the enemy with perfect precision. The unmarked fleet faltered, confusion spreading across their decks. Cole muttered, They're panicking. They don't know how to fight a ship that moves with a mind of its own." The horizon shimmered as the remaining enemy vessels faltered, retreating as the Sentinel advanced. Ethan raised his hand slightly, a gesture so small it could have been missed. The unmarked fleet scattered, turning away from the battlefield, leaving the Sentinel in absolute control of the waters. Captain Hayes exhaled, a mix of awe and relief washing over her. "Ethan, you just saved the fleet." He shook his head. "No, the Sentinel saved us all. I'm just the one it recognizes." Cole's jaw dropped. "So, all this time, the Navy didn't understand what they had? They let this weapon go unused?" Ethan's gaze swept across the deck, across the crew. "They dismissed the Sentinel because they feared what they didn't understand. They rejected me, but the ship never did, and that is the difference." A calm fell over the ocean. The fog lifted slightly, revealing a horizon free of threat. The Sentinel powered down systems that had been active, engines idling, drones docking, weapon systems retracting, yet the air remained charged with unspoken authority. Captain Hayes finally approached Ethan. "What happens now?" He looked out over the endless sea. "Now, the Navy will learn a lesson they refuse to accept. One that cannot be ignored. One that cannot be overridden." The crew watched, realizing the truth. The Sentinel was more than a battleship. It was alive in a way they couldn't comprehend, and it had chosen its true commander long before anyone else did. Lightning flashed one final time, illuminating Ethan Kane standing on the deck. Calm, commanding, untouchable. The Sentinel hummed beneath him like a living entity, ready for anything, loyal to a single signature, his. The story ended, not with the fall of the enemy, but with a revelation that would echo through every naval corridor. The greatest power wasn't in the fleet, the weapons, or the Navy itself. It was in the bond between the ship and the one it recognized. And from that moment forward, the Sentinel would answer to no one but Ethan Kane.